when you have a love for the camera and it's you're doing things with it, then I kind of think it's easier as well, rather than just taking any camera and doing it. Because then it becomes a passion project rather than just doing it for the sake of it or trying to compete and to make money. So, yeah.
What's going on, everybody? Today we're doing something a little bit different, a little bit new for the channel, a slight change to the format. I actually have a guest joining me today to talk about some of his work. His name is Cole Power from Alt Cine. Some of you may be familiar with him and his work, most notably his work with the EOS M, conforming that into the M-Lite, which was a box rehousing of the Canon EOS M. In recent months, he's dived into the world of the Blackmagic Micro cinema camera, the original, which, if you're familiar with my channel, you know I spend some time talking about that as well. His work on that camera includes expansion pack, handles, different accessories to try and make that a little bit more user-friendly. And then, of course, his big project with it, which is the Eclipse, which is another rehousing of the camera. Very exciting work that is set to launch officially here towards the end of May, going into June. I know he's put a lot of work into that, so I'm super happy to have him on the channel today to talk about his work, his direction, talk about these cameras in general, and just sort of give us a little bit of a more behind-the-scenes look into Cole Power and Alt Cine. I'll remind you once more at the end of this to check him out on YouTube at the Alt Cine channel, as well as on Instagram to follow along with his work. But in the meantime, we're going to jump right into it. Cole, thanks so much for joining me, man. I really appreciate it. You and I haven't really spoken much before. We've been aware of each other for a little while now. I'd seen M-Lite, and then you really came across my radar when you started doing some work with the Micro. But before we dive into that, you want to give me just a quick little overview of your background and what you've been up to?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Will. And yeah, as you said, it's great to meet up with fellow creatives, in the same space as you, because we do get ideas from each other, and there's no competition here. It's just all about bouncing off each other and getting ideas. So yeah, thank you for let's talking. So my background really has always been kind of in tech. It's always been, I started out actually in tech doing mobile phone repairs, then kind of taught myself a few things about, fixing other types of hardware, computers and stuff like that, which led me on to get a job at Microsoft Research. And I spent 4 years there. And I think that's kind of where my real love for technology and design and everything kind of really exploded. And funny enough, whilst I was at Microsoft, we had a whole video team there, got really friendly with them. They loaned me a camera one day, and then from that day I was hooked. So yeah, that was it really.
About how long ago was that you first started doing stuff with cameras?
I think maybe about 6 years now, 7 years since I first touched the camera, yeah.
Which side of that build versus filming sort of draws to you the most?
Obviously seeing those guys, and at that time they were using red cameras. I don't even know which red cameras they were, but whenever you see like a big cinema camera rig, you're always kind of just enamored by it, and you thinking, wow, that looks like a serious bit of kit. And they loaned me a Canon 5D Mark II, and I went to a trip to Buckingham Palace with my youngest daughter. Took a couple of photos, no idea what I was doing, but the photos just came out absolutely amazing, in auto. So from that time on, I just kind of, just loved taking photos, and then it kind of just spiraled into video. And I just think the whole thing of just being able to create something there and then, at any time you want, you can go to any location, any place, and just create something and then just come home and edit it. And that was what kind of drew me towards, the whole filming side of things.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of stuff going on these days, and I refer to it to myself mostly as camera hot rodding, where it seems like a lot of people are out there. I don't know if they've just kind of gotten tired with the equipment they've got and they want to push the boundaries or what, but there's sort of two branches of it. There's some people like what I'm doing, where I'm designing cages and add-ons and things like that. And then there's individuals like yourself that are taking it a whole nother step further. You're sort of doing like the LS swap of cameras, where you're actually rehousing and taking internal technologies from other systems and putting it into something else. And I think that, most notably was the M-Lite that you put out there. You want to tell me a little bit about how you got into that and why you started doing that?
The Canon EOS M was one of the first cameras I actually used. So after I borrowed the camera from work, then I was looking into prices of cameras, and obviously, when you first get into it, you can see how expensive everything is, the lenses, the cameras, and you're thinking, oh my God. So I got the EOS M, and then I learned about Magic Lantern shortly after and started to delve into that. But then going back to what I was saying about Microsoft, when you're seeing these big red cameras with these amazing lenses and monitors and all sorts of stuff rigged up, you immediately kind of gravitate towards that. If you kind of want to get into filmmaking and stuff like that, it's great using a small camera, but you kind of gravitate towards that big professional camera, what you see the pros using. And talking to people online, when you do YouTube videos, you get a lot of messages, a lot of DMs and stuff like that. And a lot of people just don't have money to get like a big cinema camera, but they love the idea of it. So yeah, that was the idea of turning the Canon EOS M into an M-Lite. But it kind of went a bit further than that, because using Magic Lantern, especially like the later builds, they really do heat up the sensor, they heat up the SD card, everything gets, very hot inside there. So stripping away everything that wasn't necessary, and then, having the fan inside and, all of that kind of stuff, it just made the camera function better, in my opinion, And a lot of people were able to kind of use that, to their advantage, using bigger rigs, going on to more, I wouldn't say professional jobs, but low-end jobs, but going in with a serious looking rig, So that was the goal, just to create a small, cheap cinema camera that has benefits, but also looks the part.
Cool. How long did that process take you from, when you had the idea to when you started putting them out there?
So that one I think was pretty long, because we was designing the Blackmagic 6K camera for about 9 months before we actually even spoke about releasing the M-Lite. And doing the Blackmagic box camera, it was a bit adventurous for me, because I didn't really know what I was getting into. We just stripped one down. I thought it would be easier to to throw something in a body and that would be it. Obviously, it turned out a lot harder than that. So the M-Lite, we took a lot of the design, what we done on the Blackmagic box camera, and just kind of reconfigured it into the M-Lite, and then just put the body in. So I would say it took us about 4 months, but really and truly, it's probably maybe about 8 to 9 months altogether.
Okay, so that's actually news to me. I didn't know you were working on a box for the 6K prior to the M-Lite.
Yeah, that was the one when I spoke about when Blackmagic released the Pyxis, and I showed the Pyxis next to the P6K, which we done. It was very similar, extremely similar. And the funny thing is, when I was talking to Tom is from Filmatura, who I was working with on the Blackmagic box. I asked him last year to release the images around November of the P6K, the box 6K. He said no, he wanted to keep it a secret. Then I asked him again in January and February, and in the end I just got tired of asking and just left it. So it was really strange when the Pyxis came out and how similar it looked to our B6K.
Between those two, and obviously the M-Lite's the one that got out there, but also you were working before, what were some of the biggest challenges you had in doing that?
I think it's just making it small, really, because when you look at those cameras, because of the lens mount is shifted over to one side, it's hard to actually get them in like a square box, because you have to kind of center it up. So one side always has to have more space, and that was quite a big challenge, really. And the M-Lite could have been a lot smaller. The only reason why it's as big as it is because we had to shift the mount to the middle. So that was really the hardest part about that, to be honest.
Okay, and are you working off of actual schematics from the camera that you got from the manufacturers, or are you really just breaking it down and seeing what's inside?
Yeah, just breaking it down, 3D like scanning. We've got some really crude methods of scanning the circuit boards and all the bits and pieces, and then just trying to find whatever kind of figures and schematics we can, just to kind of make up a basic 3D a model. It never goes as smooth as you want it to, but you can always get quite close, and then you have to keep tweaking and tweaking as you go along.
Yeah, your process is quite fascinating. You're able to do quite a lot of hands-on work yourself. You do your own printing, you do your own CAD building, I'm guessing. You can do your own 3D designing and stuff like that. How'd you learn how to do all that stuff?
I've only just started learning, 3D printing and modeling and stuff like that. So I don't even use Fusion, really, Fusion 360. I still do most of my base designs in Tinkercad, which, as you know, is very basic stuff. So this is where, if you look at Alt Cine, this is where Simon comes in, because Simon, again, is quite new to the whole process. He's learning Fusion 360 as we go along. But Simon is a lot more clued up than me when it comes to, you know, the whole design process and modeling and stuff like that. So without Simon, there would be nothing. So I don't want to, you know, sit here and say that, yeah, I'm doing this and I'm doing that, because I just have the ideas, basic design. This is what I need. This is what I want. This is what it should have. Give it to Simon, and then he pretty much does all of the design work over the camera. I look at it and I say, no, change this, change that. Let's put this here, put that there. So it is really like a good partnership, you know.
How'd you guys meet?
We actually met online on the Filmatura group. So he messaged me a couple of times, and he was talking about the M-Lite, and I saw a few posts of his in the EOSM group as well. And he was talking about the M-Lite and how he wished he could have one. He was trying to do his own thing at that time, and he made like a box version of the original OG, the Blackmagic OG, and someone posted it in the Filmatura group, and I said, wow, like, who's the guy that made this? I said, well, I would love to speak to him and why he didn't make it smaller and stuff like that. So then he said, yeah, and then this other guy comes on, he said, yeah, you're speaking to him. You've been speaking to him for a couple of months. I said, what, is that you? And he said, yeah. So, you know, we started to have a conversation, and he told me that he was inspired by the original M-Lite that I did, the orange one. Did you ever see that big orange box?
No, I didn't.
No. If you see that one, it's so ghetto, man. It's unbelievable. But it started something, you know. So anyway, he made the BMPCC OG. It was huge, Will. It was massive, absolutely massive. But I saw the potential in what he did with zero resources, you know. So yeah, so we got talking a bit more on online on Facebook Messenger, and yeah, been out to Romania to visit him a few times, and obviously we've done a lot of stuff together now in such a short space of time. It's crazy.
Yeah, I remember I'm in the Blackmagic Pocket. I do quite a bit of stuff with that camera. I'm in that Facebook group, and I remember when those pictures first came out, I think everybody, including myself, wanted to see more of that, see more about that box that he built and what it looked like and what it could do. There hasn't been a whole lot of posting about it since then, I guess maybe because he's been busy working with you on your stuff. You recently did a bit of a rebrand and are now Alt Cine. Do you want to tell me a little bit about the decision to do that and what it stands for and all that?
So working as a DP, I was quite fortunate because, you know, I had quite a good set of friends that work as DP videographers. So over the years since I first picked up a camera, I was very blessed to do like a lot of, you know, high profile jobs, you know, worked with Ministry of Sound. One of my biggest clients was Access Bank, and, you know, they're one of the biggest, no, I think they are the biggest bank now in Africa. You know, they're worth billions, and traveling all over Europe with them. Worked with Nick Knight from Show Studio, which is a major fashion brand marketing firm, and so I did a lot over the years, but nothing really kind of satisfied me. And so what I did is I stopped working with all my old clients, got some new clients, and then we started doing some stuff for Sky TV and some documentaries and stuff. And it was very run and gun. It was, right, you know, we're going to go and film this, you know, this £120 million house now, and we're going to go to this room, go to that room, go to this room. We've got a presenter here, and it was just rush. You never had a chance to kind of sit down and do lighting and do, you know, all the fundamental parts of filming, you know. And when I would get the footage back, I just hated the stuff what I was doing. And, you know, they was okay with it. All the company was focused more about was just numbers, turning out all this content. So got fed up with it, and I really wanted to get back into, you know, building stuff after the M-Lite. And the only way to really go forward with that is to stop filming altogether and put all of my, you know, my time, effort and resources into Alt Cine. But because I didn't speak to, this was around November I stopped filming, November last year. But because I didn't know any good designers or a person, anyone that was on my kind of wavelength to go forward with that, I couldn't really, you know, pursue it until I met Simon. We started talking, and then that was the beginning of Alt Cine. So that happened, I don't know, maybe about January or so. And yeah, Alt Cine just means alternative cinema, really. And something that I kind of have promoted on my channel over the years, that you see everybody buying such expensive goods, you know, all of these crazy rigs and spending all of this money. And I think to myself, why sometimes, you know, why do we have to spend all of this money when if we just had a bit of information, a bit of know-how, we could probably go out with the most cheapest, smallest camera and create something amazing.
That's a topic that is dear to my heart too a bit. It's just that the camera market, well, I love innovation. I love pushing technology. It's starting to turn into like the iPhone scene where it's just every year they have to bring out something new and people are waiting to buy because they don't know what the new thing might be and what the next gimmick's going to be. And the cameras that we have are just earth-shatteringly good. And they've been good for the last 10 years, which is why I like, the Pocket and the old Micro and stuff like that. And when I think back to where a lot of us started, where, if you could get your hands on a big beta cam from the news station, you were really cooking with fire then. But, working with the little handy cams and then those 35 millimeter adapters that came out where you could put stills lenses and finally get a shallow depth of field. And then when the first red camera came out, it was almost like, an urban legend about this digital camera that looked as good as it did. And it was mind-blowingly expensive, and any one of us would have done anything to have gotten our hands on that. But now a lot of people would look at that same camera and be like, oh, that's a pile of garbage. It doesn't have autofocus. It doesn't have image stabilization. It's like people are so driven now to get all this tech that I think they're hurting themselves a little bit. They're not taking time to really understand the craft. They're putting their focus on things that don't really matter. And I think that when you get all of those distractions within a camera, you really are distracting yourself from what your actual purpose is. In my mind, sometimes the more simple the camera, the better work you're going to do because you can focus on other things. So, I'm with you in that I really think that there's a lot of just great stuff out there that is affordable, and that's the best thing. You can get some of these cameras that still hold up today. Image quality, some of them are, I think, better than what's out there today, and they get overlooked.
I absolutely agree with that. And that is the reason why I had to stop doing it, because what it was over over that year, it was a case of I'm meeting new clients. Oh, what cameras do you have? Oh, I shoot on Lumix or Blackmagic. Oh, no. We prefer Sony. We want Sony and all that kind of stuff. And I'm thinking, like, I've seen people with a micro that will destroy someone that's shot something on like a Venice. It all depends about the cinematographer. And this is the kind of thing when you're doing so much of this, this in this rat race, I call it. Everyone's trying to fight for all of this content. Everybody's content ends up the same. It kind of gets into that point where you think, why are you doing this? I don't need all this stuff. And then you look at someone who's shooting on an OG Micro, and you think to yourself, wow, like it sounds ridiculous, but the footage, it touches your soul.
When did the Micro first come across your radar?
I used to have one before. I did a couple of videos a couple of years ago with the Micro. I'll be honest, I didn't keep it for long. I didn't like the buttons on the front, and it was a bit weird to set up, and it's so small, and I ended up selling it. And then the more I got into cameras, again, with the Lumix, the Sonys, and all that kind of stuff, I'm realizing that everything just looks the same. All of these cameras, they all look as good as each other. They can all be matched with each other. Nothing really stands out anymore unless you put a ton of effort in grading. So going back to the Micro and then using it for a little bit with my friends, when I said, you know what, this camera is actually amazing. So ended up buying a few more. We bought 3.
I had a similar relationship with it. I had been using the Blackmagic Pocket for a while. In about 2016, I shot a feature with it, and then the Micro came out, and it really intrigued me. And so I sold my Pocket at the time and got the Micro. And I didn't care for it at the time too much either. It just required so much to get it going, really. I shot with it for a while, and then I sold it and kind of forgot about it for a while. And then I 3 years ago did a retrospective review on the camera, and so I bought one again just to do that review. And during that thing, you'll hear me say, like, I didn't like the camera. And I put it back on my shelf, was doing some other work, needed a small camera again, and I pulled it back out and started doing some shooting with it once more. And it was like rediscovering it and understanding it differently. And I wonder if it's because, we've been inundated with so much new tech that you kind of begin to appreciate its simplicity. And so it kind of sparked a new appreciation for me. And then that's when I started, because my frustration was this camera really needs a lot to get it going. There's not a whole lot on the market. what could I offer it to help make it more accessible and easy to use? And so that's kind of why I started down that path. You've been doing some really cool work with the Micro, though, in the last few months. You want to talk about that a little bit?
You know, we obviously, I know of your cages. I know of all the stuff that you're doing as well. And I wanted something just to, not to like compete, but that something that could work together with that as well. Because a lot of people will say, oh no, I don't like this or I don't like that. But the whole point is that what we're doing is kind of giving people choices, you know? They can choose whether they want a big rig or whether they want a small rig, if they want a cage or just an accessory. And this is what the thing we need to get to. If manufacturers aren't going to do it, then it's down to people like us. And, you know, and going from the expansion pack, which obviously is just a piece, just a 3D printed piece you clip on the back, to the Eclipse, they're at both opposite ends of each other. One's just an attachment and the other one is like a full-on rehousing. You know, one costs $60. The Eclipse is going to be $2,000. That's without the camera. That's just the work and the body and stuff like that. So it's kind of catering to both ends of the market, but the Eclipse is something that we wanted to do to prove to ourselves as well that we could build the camera that we want.
Do you mind if I ask why you chose the Micro over, say, the OG, since Simon already had experience building a box out of the OG?
No. Yeah, I mean, well, I still think the OG is pretty limited. A lot of people like it for its size, and I do agree with that. You know, but when you put the Micro next to the OG, spec wise, the Micro it far exceeds the OG in my opinion. You know, with the it's already got the fan in there. We've got different frame rates, and you know, there's the audio inputs are better. Everything is just better on the Micro, really. It's just the body which it was designed for. It just needed a better body, that's all. It's an amazing camera. It always has been. It just needs a better body. That's all.
Yeah, so when you decided to build the Eclipse, and we're looking at the Micro as your starting point, what were some of the things you wanted to take with it and add to it? Tell me a little bit about your design process for that.
Yeah, so obviously the first thing is going to be the screen, because you know the camera has no screen. So putting a 4.3 inch monitor onto the actual body, so you don't need to do any rigging if you don't want to, was going to be the biggest plus. You know, we put things like SDI and stuff like that on there, but honestly, I don't really use SDI that much. I'm fine with HDMI. I think it's great. There's no problems there. But yeah, it was just basically the screen, the buttons at the rear. We put them at the rear. And then we have things like wireless remotes as well, so you can trigger record from a distance and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. So it was just basic things, but then we just added more just because we could, like the two SDI outs, one SDI in a full size XLR, that kind of stuff. We just put that in there because we could, yeah. But there's so much that camera can do. It's actually a really powerful camera. Really, It's more powerful than what people realize.
What have been some of the biggest challenges so far with the Eclipse?
Oh my gosh, Will, I'll tell you, the whole thing has been a complete headache. I've just come back from Romania on Monday, and I was supposed to bring the camera back with me, but we ran into so many issues trying to get it sorted out in a short space of time. You know, things like boards blowing, ports blowing, and this doesn't work with this type of monitor, and then the SDI out don't work with this. So you're constantly trying to figure out how to wire these things together, plus add power to them, and then you're buying different parts all the time just to kind of, you know, you think you've got the right part, it will work, but then once you've put it in and you've connected it together with other parts, unexpected things can happen, you know. But even after that, we're still going to have to test it every day, hours every day for like the next month and a half, just to make sure that there's no problems. But what we found was, the most amazing thing was, we've got 3 Micros, and 2 of them, they don't work with a dummy battery, but one of them does. But if you put in a normal LP6 battery, they work fine. Then we've got one that works with certain monitors that will work on every single frame rate, and the other 2 don't. So it's really weird that how these cameras work, and those things were really big setbacks, because the one that we built that I was supposed to bring back to England, we didn't realize that one didn't work with every single monitor. It only worked under 30 frames per second with certain monitors, and Will, I've just completely lost that why these cameras act differently, one from the other. So it's when we actually do put the Eclipse, when people go to buy it, we actually have to do a checklist of things for people to check that their camera is actually compatible with the actual rehousing.
I think along their builds, Blackmagic, obviously they're sourcing parts, but they're also probably trying to build some parts. And I noticed this as well. One of the accessories I brought out when I first did my stuff for the Pocket was a locking Micro Four Thirds body cap. And as I started testing that when I was getting ready to do stuff for the Micro, I found that it didn't lock onto the Micro. And I checked with the Pocket 4K, it didn't lock into place on the Pocket 4K. It locked into place on the original 2.5 Micro Four Third Blackmagic Cinema camera and most of the Pockets. And then eventually I picked up another Pocket, and it must have been a newer iteration, but it also didn't lock. Yeah. And so somewhere along the lines, I don't know if Blackmagic went from sourcing their Micro Four Third mounts to machining them in-house or vice versa. But at some point along the line, they swapped out that part on their cameras, and so I had to go and make new adjustments to that locking cap. But, it's hard to say, especially once you get internal, at what point they stopped using this bit of technology and started either bringing it in-house or getting a different vendor.
Don't get me wrong, even though they've done all this stuff, and people probably think I hate Blackmagic because I'm always ragging on them all the time, but Blackmagic, in my opinion, is probably the best camera company to me. Because what they've done and the price point they deliver it at with the image that they give you, I don't think there's anyone that can beat them. So I'm not going to rag on them. If they had to change, methods for whatever reason, then they've done it for a reason,
I also feel like there's a lot of stuff that goes into this that most people don't understand. People are upset that there's no ProRes. Well, ProRes, they have to pay a licensing fee to Apple, so that's added cost. But they also really want to develop their own ecosystem with Resolve. So, of course, they want B-RAW to be primary. People want MPF batteries versus the Canon batteries. Well, that's, again, they've got to pay Sony for the rights to use that. They want an RF mount. Well, they got to pay Canon for the rights to use that. So they really have to, and I think that's why you run into some of these problems with parts changing. They're obviously trying to find things they can use without having to pay a royalty to use them that they can then continue using on down the road without worrying about it breaking, but also not spending the money to develop it in-house. But anyway, it's...
That's a very good point. That's a very good point, Will. We get asked a lot of times, people say, can you make the mount interchangeable? Can you put, NDs inside or, internal NDs and stuff like that? And I'm saying to people all the time, you actually just don't understand how hard this stuff is. Even trying to take already existing parts and putting them inside a body, it's terribly complicated, So there's a lot of stuff that people say, can you rehouse, I don't know, like an A7 III or something like that. All those buttons and ribbons and things that you have to think about and putting them around. And that's just us. With them guys, if they're going to sell it as, millions of units and, you're doing all of this work, it's difficult. What I'm saying is it's really difficult. So, props to them for what they've done. And you're absolutely right. This stuff is not as easy as people think it is.
So where are things right now with the project? You mentioned you had a few hiccups in Romania, but is it still on track?
Oh, yeah. We worked it out very quickly. To be honest, we had to just take out the camera what we was using because we knew that we couldn't get around the limitations of the HDMI, the way it feeds out the HDMI. So we just had to start with a new camera, a whole new micro. Thankfully, we have 3 of them. When I bought them, I bought 3 of them, so that was good. So yeah, Simon's been doing the bits and pieces now, testing it. That's good. We've actually made some changes, some last minute changes to the body for structure as well, and just bought a few more new boards to go in, a new screen. So I'll be going back there in about 10 days or so, and then we should be finishing off the body and the build then, and then that will be it. It will start coming out.
Now, these are going to be pretty limited, correct?
We was going to do 20, but because of the amount of work that goes into it, we've had to put that down to 10 now.
What's the process going to be for, one, deciding who gets to be one of the lucky 10, and also once they've bought in, they're sending cameras, and then what?
That's basically it. Yeah. Obviously, we can't. There can't be any kind of favoritism. So it's just going to be as soon as they go live, people can order just one only, one per person. They would have to complete the checks what we send. We'll send them like a check, for the HDMI, for the battery and stuff like that. To be honest, the battery side of it doesn't really matter, but we just want people to check anyway, just to make sure what kind of unit that they've got. So once they've done the checks, if it passes, then they will ship the camera to us. We will then do all of the work and then ship the camera back. And we will. The reason why we only wanted to do 20 in the first place is because of the aftercare as well. And we can keep building, but if someone gets a problem 3 months or 4 months down the line, we want them to either send the camera back to us so we can take care of it rather than them trying to do it themselves. So we don't want to overburden ourselves with lots of sales, and then we've got things to look after, people to look after. We have to be careful,
I guess that sort of leads into long term for you and for Alt Cine. If we're looking, 5-10 years down, is this something you want to continue doing, or you think you'll get back into full-time DP work? What do you see your future looking like?
Will, I have no idea. I don't really plan like that. I know people say, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. We've all heard that. That's that. But I don't believe that. I just take every day as it comes, and I think when we get too serious about things and wanting to do so much, we everything just becomes like a job. It becomes like work. I think like for myself, I'm just going to enjoy this for as long as possible. It's not about any money. It's not about any, goals or specific goals that I want to reach. These are kind of just personal challenges that I like to do. And this is really challenging for me at the moment. So once we overcome this step, it'll just be on to the next one, and then we'll just see what happens. Yeah. My ideal, if you want to know about a goal, then my ideal place would be to live in the woods somewhere in a cabin away from society. But in terms of work and all that kind of stuff, no, I couldn't tell you. Were
you chasing the micro stuff before you knew about the G2 as well, or was that sort of a surprise for you too?
Well, we had discussions about it. This is when I was with talking to Tom. We had discussions about about doing the older micro. When we spoke about the EOS M, there was a little bit of resistance from Tom. Didn't want to do it because it was a niche product. And then when we spoke about the G2, the G1, again it was another one he didn't want to do because it was a niche product. But I think these niche products, they're the ones that they're just a lot better in my opinion, because then you've got like a fan base around it. It's a real people who have a vested interest in this. They're not just buying it because everybody else has got it, or the latest YouTuber or whoever's got it. They buy it because there's a vested interest. The Sigma FP, the Micro, the EOS M. It was only until I met Simon, when he actually loves the micros as well, the OG and the Micro. So he said yes straight away. So we just got cooking straight away. So yeah.
The niche thing I think is very important because it's a lot of time and a lot of expense, I think, for you and I, just as individual people, to try and do some of this stuff. And by sticking to the niches, it kind of helps us know that at least we stand a small chance of getting it out there versus jumping right into the Sony bed and trying to do stuff for the new cameras. You're then competing against teams and millions of dollars and marketing budgets and all that stuff. And, who's to say that after months of my time and your time and personal funds going into it, that it's even going to make a dent. So I think it is important to kind of find those niches and that audience.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Pick your battles wisely. Definitely. But the thing is as well, I think it helps again that, that we have like a love for the camera. When you have a love for the camera and it's you're doing things with it, then I kind of think it's easier as well, rather than just taking any camera and doing it. Because then it becomes a passion project rather than just doing it for the sake of it or trying to compete and to make money. So, yeah.
Great way to put it. All right. Well, Cole, we're going to end it there. I think that's a great place to stop. Thank you again so much for joining me, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Really appreciate it, Will. And all the best for your stuff as well, man. I'll keep an eye looking out for that. And yeah, hopefully everything goes well for you. Cheers.
Totally. And for the rest of you, I hope you found this conversation interesting and enlightening. Be sure to follow Cole once again, he and Alt Cine, on the Alt Cine YouTube channel, as well as on Instagram and X, to stay up to speed with the progress of their work. As for this channel, don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.